of laughter through the pain. But look at us now, on a Sunday time. Have we seen our finest hour? Good times surely will come. All I know is people talk without listening. What I'm saying is life's too short to live in these extremes. Have we seen our finest hour? Good times surely will come. And all through the night I wondered and waited.
Fake news. Boston wrestling is fake news.
Divided we fall to wait here for you, holding it together, just like a desert flower, waiting on the rain to come. And all I know is anger, lies, confusion. And what I'm saying is you don't realize what this means. Have we seen our finest hour? Good times surely will come. Just like a desert flower, waiting on the rain to come.
Well, getting back to what I was saying in earlier conversation about to be a professional wrestler, you have to be tough. You know, most of the guys in my day, they have an amateur background or football background. They came from a background where you have to be tough to be in the business. I remember going back to my first year, I'm still on my very first year, George Scott was really like a father to me. I grew up without a father, so George Scott was like a father to me. George Scott, you know, if you look him up on WikiLink, you can learn a whole lot about this guy. You know, he was involved with WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2. He was involved with the career of Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat. You know, a lot of guys that is big stars back in the day, George Scott helped develop these guys. I remember when Ric Flair first started, you had a tie-dye shirt, 275-pound, chubby, had a rag around his head. And what happened that gave Ric Flair his star was in Wilmington, North Carolina, they had these private planes. Ronnie Garvin had one of them private planes too. So a lot of guys got tired of traveling, so they had these private planes. So the pilot got the idea because all the boys had these wrestlers was big. You know, you had to be, if you was under 230 pounds, you was a lightweight in wrestling. You could not be a 220-pound heavyweight champion of the world back in the 70s. They had a different group for guys like Les Stature, all the guys that was under 230. Everything from 230 under was light heavyweight title. You know, if you look back, remember they just had an old light heavyweight. Yep. They don't have no more. So you had to be over 230 in order to be called a heavyweight. Like them days, people want to see a wrestler got to be bigger than life. Now, in some territory, the rule didn't apply, like Jerry Lawler, you know, in Tennessee and places like that. You know, they did it. But in most territories, like New York, especially during that time, Mid-Atlantic, Vern Gagne, you had to be, you know, a big guy. They wanted a big guy. So they were flying from Charlotte, North Carolina, to Wilmington, where the guy took some of the gasoline out of the airplane to lighten the load because they had all these wrestlers with their bags and everything. So the plane crashed. Johnny Valentine was on the flight, and he became paralyzed. Now, Johnny Valentine is Greg Valentine's father. He became paralyzed from the leg down. Ric Flair was on that flight. He injured his back, but he came out okay, as y'all well know. David Crockett was on that plane. He came out okay. Bob Breggers, who was my first tag team partner, the guy that I talked about earlier, was Bob Breggers. He used to play football, I believe, for Miami Dolphins, but he got paralyzed from the leg there. Now the pilot, his head went straight through the windshield, and it killed him. So Johnny Valentine and Wahoo McDaniel at that time, they were the hardest thing going. They were selling out everything. So they needed somebody to take to take Johnny Valentine's place. So George Scott started grooming Ric Flair for the job. Fortunately for the company, Ric Flair was able, with all his finesse and everything, he was able to pick up where Johnny Valentine left off. Now, back in the day, if you wrestled Ric Flair, his thing was he was a cardio man. He would get in the dressing room and he would do 300 free squats. We call them sumo squats, where you swing the arm squat down. He would do 300 every night. So he would get guys in the ring and he would blow them up. He was the first wrestler with the boom, 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 high spot, high spot, high spot, high spot. And he would love to tire you out. Once he tire you out, then he'd do his strut. Woo! Then he started kicking your ass. Because there's nothing you can do about it, because your ass was tired there. In other words, Ric Flair was the first rope-a-dope. Like, you remember how Muhammad Ali did the rope-a-dope? We laid up against the road and let old form of, what was his name?
George Foreman.
George Foreman, let old George Foreman tired himself out. And then when George Foreman started throwing punches like that, then when Ali, well, that's how Ric Flair was. He would run you and run you and run you non-stop. You got to realize back in the day, the shortest match back then was 15 minutes. Every main event went 30 minutes. If you did a 10 or 15-minute main event back in them days, people want their money back. There was only 6 matches. They didn't have called it 8 matches, 20 matches, 10 matches. There was only 6 matches. You had a main event, your semi-main, and then you had 3 preliminary matches. So they would have the 3 preliminary matches first. Then they have an intermission, and then right after the intermission was a semi, and then the main event. Now, a lot of your main events back in them days was 1 hour. Ric Flair must have had 1,000 1-hour matches. Wahoo must have had 1,000 1-hour matches. On that card, they would have 4 matches, and they would end with the semifinal. Most of the semifinal was always a tag team match. That's where they would do the tag team. So Ole and Gene Anderson would be in the tag team. Ric Flair would be in the main event against Johnny Weaver or Paul Jones. Paul Jones has got not talked about much, but back in the day, he was a big star back in the Mid-Atlantic time. There was some of the things that being a wrestler you could and you could not do. The guys used to get they used to get juice. Now, people used to always ask me, was the blood for real? Yeah. How they did it, I hope I don't get in trouble with some of the old timers. They would take a razor blade and they would tape it to their finger. And then when the people not looking, they hit. Now, some guy would let another guy cut them. Just like when Abdullah was wrestling, Abdullah would, he would cut people himself. There was one, and if the guy didn't like you, like the Sheik, not the Iron Sheik, the original Sheik, which is what's his uncle? What is it? Yeah, Sabu uncle. The guy got smart within the ring, and he cut the guy from ear to ear. And when he get back dressed, he said, "Why you cut him like?" He said, "He moved." So guys would do, you have to be tough. You have to protect yourself. Because guys would try to break your leg. They would try to break your arm. Because if I'm in the ring, let's say with Ric Flair back in the older days, and I was supposed to do a job for Ric Flair, I was supposed to lose Ric Flair. If I could do something to Ric Flair to hurt him, he get hurt in that match, that would move me up the ladder. Because now, hey, you hear what happened with Stan Hansen. Bruno Sammartino broke his neck. All of a sudden, Stan Hansen is a big star in New York because he was wrestling Bruno when he got a broken neck. Chris Adams, same thing happened to him with Von Erich. Cameron got hurt in the ring. Whoever he was wrestling with became a king. Same thing happened with Killer Kowalski. Killer Kowalski was kicking a guy, kicked him on the ear, kicked his ear off. Ripped his ear off the side of his head. He's a killer. Ox Baker hit a guy with the heart punch. The guy died.
Not from the heart punch.
Yeah. The guy died. So then all of a sudden, Ox Baker became a big star because he had this heart punch. Because guys died with. So sometimes things would happen accidentally that would automatically shoot a guy to the top. Because people started focusing. We want to see this guy who broke this guy leg. We want to see this guy that broke this guy arm. We want to see this guy that this killer Kowalski. He's a killer. He's a killer. They call him a killer because he ripped the guy's ear off in the ring. Sometimes a guy would lose an eye or something happened. But whoever is in the ring with that guy during the time that this incident happened, they automatically people wanted to see it. So wrestling was never a sport for wimps. The reason it was, let's say for example in Mid-Atlantic, we wrestled in the same towns every week. It wasn't like it were now when you see wrestling once every blue moon. Every night, it was Charlotte, North Carolina on Mondays, or Greenville, South Carolina, or Charlotte, North Carolina on Monday. On Tuesday, we did a TV taping in Raleigh, North Carolina. We wrestled in Raleigh, North Carolina. Or some of the guys would go somewhere else and then have to travel to Raleigh on Wednesday. Every Wednesday, you wrestle in Raleigh. So you had a match the night before in Raleigh, North Carolina. Next day they stay overnight in Raleigh. Then they would do TV taping. Now some guys they ran North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia simultaneously. So sometimes they were saying you be on that what we call the B car. We had to do Greenville, Spartanburg, and then drive to Raleigh. And then from Raleigh, you have to drive back to Florence, South Carolina. And then you have to drive up to Charleston, South Carolina. I got a good story about Charleston with the promoter that taught me something about the business. But that's pretty much how the business was. It was what's called a territory. You had different territories. So you was in the same town every night. And then Tuesday was even Spartanburg or some South Carolina town after Raleigh TV on Wednesday, or you go to Norfolk and wrestle at the Scope. On Friday was either Richmond, Virginia, or Charleston, South Carolina. On Saturday, most of the time it was Greensboro or some other place. And sometime on Sunday you was off, and sometime on Sunday you wrestled twice. They would have a 3 o'clock show, then they have like a 7 o'clock show. So the guy was on the road 7 days a week. 7 days a week you was on the road. You had no time off. The only time wrestlers back in the 70s got off was right before Christmas time. You got 10 days off for Christmas. You was off from the 15th to the 26th. Now in some areas, like Texas and other places, they would run a Christmas show.
Yep.
So you only got 9 days off, and this for the whole year. You hear a story about Ric Flair. We said that he'd wrestle, 360 some, 350 some days a year. That was common for wrestling. We wrestled every day. Every day you went on the road. We would drive. The average thing for wrestling, he'd get up in the morning, have his breakfast, hit the gym, drive to the next town. You want to eat before 4 o'clock. None of the guys will eat after 4 o'clock. You drive to the next town. You wrestle. The show you start at that time at 8 o'clock at night. You have to be in the dressing room at 7. The show would start at 8. 10 o'clock, the show was over, and you would drive back to wherever you based at. So like if you're in Raleigh, you have to drive back to Charlotte. And then Charlotte was the base, and then you transfer from Charlotte to different terms. The schedule was the same. The trip was different. The average trip was 200 miles. That was average. I remember guys used to race back. In fact, I remember one time we was coming back from a trip 1975. And they used to have Cadillac tournaments. And all the guys that want to buy a new car, you tell the promoter, hey, I'm getting ready to get a new car. So if you want to get yourself over. So the promoter said, oh, great, we have a tournament. Don't buy the car yet. We get a tournament. So they have a Cadillac tournament. And it was this, all the guys got the 1975 Eldorado. Now, back in them days, you get a brand new Eldorado, brand new Cadillac for about $9,000. Now that get your used car. But that was a brand new, big old, long Cadillac. So one day they had a match in Raleigh, North Carolina, and all the guys are trying to get back because they had to go to South Carolina the next day. So Ric Flair, it was Wahoo McDaniels and Blackjack Mulligan, and they racing down the highway to see who got the fastest car. So the cop pulled them over. Now this is how wrestling was. Then the cop pulled both of them over. Said, hey, you guys was racing. So Wahoo said, Medical said, Wahoo said, well, I just got through fighting with this guy here. And he want to pick it up out of the ring. So he said, oh, y'all need wrestler. Yeah, we wrestled. We just had a match together. They showed him the cuts on the head and everything. And so what they did, they held Blackjack and they let Wahoo go home. I was riding with, what was it, Bearcat Wright. And he got caught for speeding. So when the car pulls us over, he jumped out the car real fast, lift the hood up, and the cop comes and said, "What's trouble?" He said, "Them damn brakes are always sticking on me. They keep sticking on me." He was acting like your brake was sticking. So they always have things how the food cop. You try to get home. If you drove, now the speed limit back in them days was not big. Especially when they dropped down to 55. So to get home. Most of the guys drove 70 to 80 miles per hour. This back in the 70s to get home. I mean, you had a 200-mile trip. All the guys want to get in by 2 in the morning,
and that's each way.
And that's we was 200 miles going, 200 miles come back. So that was like a 4-hour trip. So guys would brag about it. And they say, "Hey, I made it in 3 hours. Now there was no fast food places like they do now. We want to get some meat like Burger King and all the places. We didn't have all that. So what we do for food after the matches. They have what's called a bologna blowout. So the bologna blowout, they would guys get, it was like a loaf, bologna loaf, and you get the big square cheese, the cheese about that big old square, and the big bologna loaf about that long. Get some bread, a jar of mayonnaise, a jar of mustard. So one guy be sitting in the back. He sliced you off a piece of bologna, sliced you off a slice of cheese. If you want mustard or whatever on, he squirt that on there. He give you your sandwich and give you a nice ice cold beer. That's what we call the bologna blowout. That's what guys ate every night.
That was the early Subway.
Yeah. but you didn't have these fast food places. The only places you had where you get food at night were truck stops. And they were here and there. But during the day, you could stop in little restaurants and stuff and grab food to go. But there was restaurants. There was no McDonald's, no Burger King, no Kentucky Fried Chicken, none of that stuff on the side of the road.
In Mid-Atlantic, it was back and forth home every night. You weren't out in hotels.
Well, no, you stayed in the hotel. Like when you went, it depends on how they book it. You on the B team, we on the A team, you stayed over every night. Like the A team in Mid-Atlantic, you was in Charlotte. So you had home in Charlotte. Then you drive to Raleigh. You stay over in Raleigh Tuesday night. You did TV. Now you had 2 choices the next day. You could stay in Raleigh a second night, or you could drive to Norfolk that night. So then you stay over in Norfolk. Then when you went from Norfolk, you stayed over in Richmond. Then you stay over in Roanoke. So that's the A team. You stayed over every night. Then you came back home after Roanoke. So my wife at that time, when I was married to this lady named Joyce, who's the mother of my daughter Nikki, she lived in Opelika, Alabama. Joyce saw me Sunday when I came home, and she saw me Monday when I left. That's the only time my wife saw me during that whole time. Now you had nice territories that where guy was home every night, but that was a rarity. When you worked Mid-South, you was on the road. We lived in hotel from hotel to hotel to hotel. Now a lot of times you would get booked in a way where you'd be home. It wasn't your home because Rufus home was in Kansas City, Kansas or Missouri. My home was in Virginia. You have not a home. We say home every night. You come back to your base. It's like when I first went to the WWF, the base was Hamden, Connecticut. And they had these central towns, like Charlotte was the base. That's where the office was at. There were everything at. So all the boys would transfer back and forth to the base. But no, you stayed in the hotel room after every hotel room, hotel. And at nighttime, everything was cold. They used to have a big cooler would be in the car. I want to tell you this story before I forget about Ric Flair. And if y'all talk to Ric Flair, you probably remember. Us wrestlers, we had a thing we used to do at nighttime. It's against the law, but we did it anyway. We'd be drinking beer. And so every wrestler I knew would have at least 2 bologna blowout sandwiches, at least 2, and a 6-pack of beer. That was our dinner. A 6-pack of beer and a big bologna sandwich. With Ric Flair was real flashy. Ric Flair he was the first guy to get tailor-made clothes. Tailor-made. And he would get on TV, he would rip off these $300 suits. Well, back in 1975, 77, early 70, mid 70, $300 was a lot of money, especially when minimum wage was only about $1.60 about during that time. So you could buy a brand new house back then for less than 50 grand. You get a brand new car for 10 grand. When I bought my first brand new automobile, I paid 10 grand for it. Johnny Weaver thought I was nuts. He said, "You could have got a house for that." But anyway, Ric Flair just bought this brand new ring. It was gold with all these big diamonds on it. And we asked him, "How much you pay for this?" He said, "I paid $5,000 for this ring." So he was showing it off in the dressing room and everything. We were driving down the road. We following Ric Flair because Heel and Babyface couldn't ride it. So what Ric Flair did, he was throwing beer bottles out the window, hitting the stop sign. You hit the stop sign. See how many stop signs you hit. Every time you have a beer, roll down the window, throw the bottle, and hit the stop sign. Finally, we see Flair, whoever he was riding with, they slam on the brakes. We almost rear ended them. So they pull over to the side. Flair get out, run, looking through the bushes, the other guys in the car, they all looking in the bushes and stuff. So we make sure nobody none of the fans saw, okay? We didn't want the babyface the fan to see the babyface and heel together. So we said, "Flair, what happened?" "I lost my ring." We said, "What ring?" The ring that he had, $5,000 ring. When he threw the beer thing, the ring come off of his finger. Because his finger got wet from, holding the cold beer. So with the water got on his finger, and when he threw the beer bottle, $5,000 ring.
Now
he never found that ring. I asked him later on. I said, "Flair, you ever found that ring?" He said, "No, I never found that ring." He used to take Rolex watches. Flair would go into a bar. We had beer, everything. And everybody said, "Hey, there go Ric Flair, there go Ric Flair." So Flair be drinking beer, laughing and joking, partying with everybody. When you get up and then all of a sudden the lady or whoever owned the bar, the man or whoever owned the bar, they would get up and they would say, "Don't worry, drinks on Flair." So Flair would pay for everybody's drink. Now the only other guy that I knew would do that was Wahoo. I mean, not Wahoo, but Andre the Giant. When you see Andre sitting in the restaurant, all the rest of the crowd around his table. I thought they were going around Andre the Giant table because they like Andre. They want to hang out with the big giant, hang out with Andre. That wasn't it. They were at the Andre table because Andre paid for the food. The Andre drink, you drink. Andre eat, you eat. I would sit there with Andre, and Andre would take a beer with the little 2 fingers, like that. He go, "You drink." I said, "Andre," I got the first one. So Andre would order another 6 beers. He ordered you another 6 beer. Every time Andre ordered a beer for himself, everybody at the table, he ordered a beer for them. I remember one night I was sitting there. I got 50 beers in front of me. Andre got none. He just ordered. This man just sat there in front of me and drunk 50 freaking beers.
That was a nightly thing.
50 beers. And it was like this. Click. One sip, the beer gone. But Andre was a huge man. But when he ordered him a beer, he ordered you a beer. Now, we have wrestlers that was on the opposite side of that when I first started that wouldn't spend a quarter. They were cheap. As the old timers say, he's tighter than an ass stretched over a bass drum. These guys, they was cheap. They wouldn't spend no money. I'm sure he don't mind me telling the story. He's very proud of it. Ronnie Garvin would travel for a week with 1 pair of jeans, 2 pairs of underwear, 2 pairs of socks, and 2 T-shirts.
Wow.
Randy Savage was tight as hell. You ask his brother Leonard. Randy would get one pair of tights. The only thing Randy would spend money on was his uniform for the ring, his ring gear. He invests a lot of money in ring gear. But I remember one time he moving up a little bit. He took and bought a pair of tights. And everybody said, "Hey, Randy, them nice tights." And Steve Joe said, "Yeah, he's gonna be wearing them 2 months later." He said they were have to fall off of him before he take them off. Showing up another time, Rick and Steamboat, me and Rick and Steamboat, we were going to get something to eat. This little Chinese restaurant. And we saw Randy, Savvy, and Elizabeth going to the room. And Steamboat, being a nice guy, said, "Hey, Randy, you want to have dinner with me? I'll buy you. I'll pay, we got a nice little Chinese restaurant actually." Randy turned to Steve and said, "No, that's okay. I got some leftover pizza from last night."
I heard Ole was a tight person.
Ole was tighter than an ass stretcher or a bass drum too. Ole got some new boots one time, and everybody started picking on Ole. They said, "Ole, you got new boots. The family spent some money." No, they was given to me. Speaking of Ole Anderson, you got to hear this story. Now, I know I'm all over the place, but that's just Tony Allen. I was at the beginning of my career. We was at the YMCA working out. And this guy was we call a dojo from a karate school. So he was talking about what I do is for real, what you guys do is fake. I'm the real thing, you're the fake thing. So Ole got tired of listening. Ole got up off the bench. And Ole was pretty strong too. I saw him bench press 405 pounds, 405. So he was not a weakling. So Ole said, "Show me your karate move." So the guy got the slide. Showing him his collar, kicking, jumping up, doing all this stuff. Ole sitting there looking at him like this. He said, "That's it?" He said, "That looked fake to me. You couldn't bust a fucking grape with that shit you do." And the guy said, "Oh yeah." And Ole said, "Yeah, I don't think you could bust a fucking grape with this shit." And the guy said, "Well, I guarantee you, if I give you the good punch, I'll put you down, as big as you are." Now, Ole was about 270, 275 with 20-inch arm. Ole Anderson, he was a stocky guy, big Polish guy. So Ole said, "Okay, let me get ready for it. I want you to give me your best freaking punch." So Ole turned his back to the guy and went and leaned over, and then Ole straightened back up and go, "Okay, I'm ready. Give it to me right here. Right here. Give it to me right here. Come on. Give it to me. Give it to me." The guy said, "Brother, it's going to hurt. I don't want to hurt you. Come on, you fucking piece of shit. Hit me if you're going to hit me. Come on, you freaking see. Come on, hit me. So the guy said, "Okay, you asked for it now." Ole said, "Stop running your freaking mouth and hit me." So the guy drew back, hit Ole in the freaking stomach, and broke his hand. Wow. Ole lifted up.
Oh, he
His
put
shirt,
something in there.
lift up his shirt and pull out a 25-pound weight. It said, not only, he said that karate didn't teach you, but you dumb shit, and dropped the weight. He stuck a 25-pound weight underneath his shirt, and the guy hit him on that weight and broke his freaking hand. Ole said, "You dumb shit, you, look at you." He said, "I bet you won't do that again." Yeah, that's Ole. A lot of people didn't like Ole Anderson. I loved him because Ole Anderson just tell you how he felt. He didn't pull word. If he thought you was a dumb piece of crap, he would tell you, "You're a dumb piece of crap, you." Ole Anderson was one of the toughest guys that I knew. Gene was tougher. Gene, when the guy would give Gene crap in the ring, Gene Anderson would say, "Meet me outside." Some of the guys was stupid enough to do this. They would go outside with Gene. Gene beat the fuck out of him, drag him back into the arena, and throw him in the arena and say, "Hey, look at that. I told ain't that the guy that will fuck with me? I told you I'm going to fuck him up." So this guy laying in the middle of the arena like this, but Gene don't beat the hell out of him. I see Gene take a lot of people out back and beat the hell out of him. Wahoo McDaniel, I was tag team with him one time. Wahoo said, "I want you to walk behind me, Tony." Now, Wahoo was a real Indian. My pronunciation ain't that good, so I want him to read it. What tribe is Wahoo from there?
Let's see. He is an American Choctaw Chickasaw Native American.
Chickasaw Native American. He was a real Indian. Where the feather he wore was made by his tribe. They was made by his tribe. So what ended up happening was he said, "Don't let nobody pull my feather off." This is in Norfolk, Virginia. So I'm walking behind Wahoo, trying not to let nobody, because they would take his feathers as he go to the ring. By the time he get the ring, like a plucked chicken, feathers and everything be feathers if they be are missing. So what ended up happening was the guy took Wahoo feather. So Wahoo got mad at me, wanted to fight me, but he liked me, so he didn't. He said, "I told you not to let nobody get my feather." So he told the guy, said, the police had brought the guy in the back that took, so Wahoo saw the guy with feather. Wahoo ran out the ring, beat the guy up at ringside. The guy was all bloody, knocked out everything. So they put him on the stretcher, drug him in the back. So Wahoo still fussing at me. "Don't let that happen to me again. They take my feather, blah, 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 blah." He's hot. I mean, he's really, really hot. So it ended up happening. Wahoo saw the guy, and they're getting ready to put him on the ambulance. Wahoo pulled him off the ambulance, beat him up some more. That was Wahoo. Wahoo was just, if there ever was anybody that what you said was tough, Wahoo McDaniel was probably one of the toughest guys that ever been in this business. See, when I broke into wrestling, I tell these different stories. I know I'm all over the fucking place, but I tell these stories so y'all get to know these guys. When you see Wahoo McDaniel, the first thing that would hit your man, "I don't want to fight that guy." You saw Blackjack Mulligan, the first thing you would think about, the last thing you would think about is fighting freaking Mulligan. I mean, you got to be a nut to want to fight these guys. Angelo Moscas, all these guys. They was all freaking I was riding with Swede Hamster one time. Swede Hamster, huge man, 300, maybe 400 pounds. We used to call him Raw Bone. He was solid as a rock. They used to have in the 70s, they had a CB. Breaker, one name. Breaker. Who is this? We got the Big Swede here. Big Swede. You sound like that wrestler I seen with Rip Hawk. Is that the same Swede that be with Rip Hawk? He said, "Yeah, I'm the same Swede that is with Rip Hawk." He said, "That wrestling fake." This is on the CB. Swede said, "Well, why don't you pull over at mile marker 15 where I'm at?" And we used to go by mile markers back then. "You can pull, I'm at this mile marker. What mile marker are you at?" Breaker. "Well, I'm at mile marker 200. "Okay, I'll be there in 15 minutes. So this trucker pulled over like an idiot. Sweet got out the van, had a green van, got out the van, opened the truck door, reached in, pulled the guy out, beat the crap out of him, threw him back in the truck, got in his car, and drove down the street. Later on the CB, we hear him talking. "Guys, if you see this big guy, this big blonde-headed guy, driving a green van, don't stop him. Let him go. This is Breaker so and so. I'm on my way to the hospital. I think he broke every bone in my body." There was a picture where they tried to arrest Sweet House at one time. These policemen and Ric Flair just had left the office telling George Scott. Back in them days, people didn't put wrestlers. They figured wrestling was fake, so you couldn't get in the newspaper. If you got in the newspaper, it was something special. They didn't put, and they still don't do it. They don't put the matches. You hear about the football game, the basketball game in the sports paper. You don't hear about WWE or WWE because they didn't consider wrestling at that time as being not a legitimate sport. So the guys would go for any publicity they could get. So it was common for a wrestler to go into a bar like Mad Dog Vachon, beat up everybody in the bar, and end up in a newspaper. It was common for them to do that. So you get in the newspaper, the owner will come and bail you out. The next day, people want to see this guy. They just beat 5 guys in a bar. They want to see, hey, you heard about this wrestler? No, yeah, he was he was in this bar. He just beat up 5 bikers. Oh, really? Oh, I got to go see this guy. So it's sold money. So Ric Flair said, "I got to do something." Told George Scott, "I got to do something to get myself in the newspaper." So we went to get our check on Monday. And George Scott said, "All you guys sit here. All you guys sit here. We want y'all to stay here. We want to see something." He said, "Let me know when Flair get here." So Ric Flair came in the dressing room. Like the way Flair walked. Like I said, Ric Flair is not acting. What you see is what you get. That's the real Ric Flair. So Flair come in and they said, "Hey, Flair, have you got a newspaper yet?" He said, "No." He said, but I will. You watch, George. He said, "Well, Sweet just beat you." Then he pulled out a picture, and on the front page is Street Hamster sitting on the top about 5 or 6 policemen with his arm folded like this. These cops couldn't handle this guy. Same thing with Ken Paterno and Saito. I mean, these guys that I was wrestling with, it took no one person could beat these guys. Guys like Mad Dog Vachon, Wahoo McDaniel, Abe Jacobs. I mean, when it comes to tough, I mean,
Joe LeDuc.
Oh, Joe LeDuc. One day, Joe LeDuc, he was so tough that he would go in the ring and he would cut his forehead and get blood. Well, he'd go back to the dressing room and look. The match is over. He looked at himself. Oh, hell, I don't have enough blood. And started cutting his forehead again. Oh, yeah, now that looks good. Now that looks good, you know. And I go, what the hell time of business I got myself in where guys cut themselves with their forehead with razor blades, guys hit each other in the head with chairs. What we would do, if they would hit you in the head with a chair, and if the chair fold around your head, that was okay. You know? That was okay. You know, and here this young kid just started wrestling, and I watched these guys do this stuff. But I would say to wrestle Johnny Valentine, there was nothing fake about Johnny. Johnny did it for real. You just got to be able to take it when it comes to Johnny Valentine. I mean, anybody that wrestled Johnny Valentine. Then they have another guy called Carl Gotch. He didn't make no money because Carl Gotch, he shot every night. He would get in the ring and just stress the crap out of you. You just take Stu Hart, for example, which is Bret the Hitman Hart father. You know, he had a dungeon. And he would take guys down in his dungeon. He would stretch them his right so you could hear the guy screaming a block away. And they was kind of sadistic in a way because the harder you put it on him, the more he enjoyed it. He didn't lighten up. He tightened up even more if you start hollering and screaming. You take like Bob Randy Orton grandfather, Bob Orton, not Bob, but Bob Orton Jr. Bob Orton Jr. is a very, very tough guy. He run a lot of championship and amateur wrestling, everything. But Senior was something altogether because Senior was like a fighter and a wrestler too. You know, he would shoot with you. Boris Malenko. His son is downstairs working. He was another tough guy. And that's what they did with me. They took me to a bar when I first started, Sweet House of Dead, paid 3 guys to jump on me to see if I could fight for no other reason. If I couldn't fight, the way the wrestling business worked, they would bring you down, put you through a deck of cards, put you in a mat, beat the crap out of you. Mr. Fuji was the funniest of them all. Mr. Fuji, he didn't want to train you. So he would get a 6-pack of beer. And he would get in his convertible red and white Cadillac. And you be in front of him jogging while he drank his beer. Then he throw the beer can at you, hit you in the back with the beer can. That means you got to speed up. You got to run now. Now you got to run. And you keep running while he get himself another beer. So as soon as he started drinking beer, you slow back down. And that's how Fuji would train you. So you run in front of his car. Well, you're afraid to fall down or something. He run the hell over you or something. Fuji was also known, and people all over the world known about ribbon. So when you're on an airplane, do not go to sleep around Mr. Fuji. So Mr. Fuji will watch you sleep. And as you're sleeping on the airplane, he get a little squirt. He carry a little water gun. And he would come up and squirt a little bit of water right around your crotch. And he keep doing it until you got a big wet spot in front of you. Then he had a makeup kit. He put eyeshadow on you. He put lipstick on you. And when most people get off the airplane, unless you got to go to the bathroom, you don't look in no mirror. You go straight to bag clean. So here these guys will be walking through the airport.
Big huge old guys.
Yeah, big, huge, freaking guy. 300-pound guy, looking like the Frankenstein with makeup on, walking through the airport. Then finally, when you get in the car, you look in the mirror, oh, shit, Fuji again, Fuji. Then you looking down your pipe, you like got water. Now, Fuji has some jokes that was not funny. One, if y'all, Don Morocco got a program I saw. I don't know if Don told y'all this story, but Don Morocco was trained and broke in by Fuji in Hawaii. And Fuji liked Don Morocco a lot. I like Don. Don Morocco is a great guy. I like Don a lot. He took care of me and the Iron Sheik. We was in Japan because none of the white guys wanted me around him because I was black, and they didn't want the Sheik around him because he was Arabic. So Morocco being a nice guy, then Morocco said, "Yeah, you guys come on and go with me. I'm gonna show y'all around Japan." So Morocco was a great, great, great guy. So anyway, make a long story short, Morocco was telling about how these guys kept picking on him when he first started. So he told the Fuji. So Fuji is driving down the road, listening to Morocco, telling about what happened. So he saw a dead animal in the road. I don't know what it was. It was roadkill. Pretty much what it was, roadkill. So Fuji took a towel and wrapped this dead animal up, this roadkill up in a towel. Then he takes it back to his house. He invited all the wrestlers over that was picking on Don Morocco. Brought them all back to the house. So Mr. Fuji come out, gave them the barbecue, and they eating barbecue, drinking beer, eating barbecue. Oh, Mr. Fuji, great, great, great food, Mr. Fuji. Oh, Mr. Fuji, so good, so good, so good, Mr. Fuji. So Fuji said, "How do you like my barbecue?" The guy said, "Oh, wonderful, Mr. Fuji. Best barbecue I've had." Fuji was a good cook. "Oh, wonderful, Mr. Fuji. Wonderful, Mr. Fuji." So then he said, "How was the beer?" "Oh, the beer, great, great, great. Anybody want more barbecue?" "Oh, no, no, I'm all full, Mr. Fuji." "Any more beer?" "Oh, no, no, I'm good, Mr. Fuji." So Fuji said, "You like my barbecue?" Huh? The guy said, "Oh, yeah, I love your barbecue, Mr. Fuji. Love the barbecue." Fuji reached behind him and pulled out the head of the dead animal. He said, "So you like roadkill?"
Jeez.
He fed him roadkill.
Oh,
Another time, what Fuji would do to a guy, he had a cookie.
oh no.
A cookie. Have cookie. Wife make very good cookie. Cookie good for you.
No.
So the guy would take one bite of the cookie. The cookie was loaded with LSD. So now you're sitting in the freaking room. You got a match now. You got a wrestle. You just bit this cookie one bite. And the room started going around and around and around. Guys were trying to go into the ring. They couldn't find the door. Other guys are laughing their ass off. I mean, they walk this way, they hit the wall. They walk this way, they hit the locker. They walk this way, they hit another wall. Man, help me get to. They can't find a way to the freaking ring because everything is going in the freaking circle. I mean, he got these guys on freaking cloud nine. These guys got co-wrestlers. Fuji's sitting there just like this. They had another guy that used to always ask for shampoo. He never used his own stuff. "Hey, brother, you got tape, brother?" They give you tape. "Hey, brother, you got shampoo?" They give him shampoo. Well, Fuji got tired of it. Fuji said, "I'll fix them." So they had this old Johnson shampoo back in the old days, and the shampoo was kind of light brown. So Fuji took half of the shampoo, poured it out, and then he urinated in the bottle. So the guy come up. Fuji knew he was going to ask for shampoo. So just to make sure that he asked Fuji set the shampoo up where the guy could see it, up on the table. So Fuji know he's going to ask for that shampoo. He do it every night. So the guy come in, "Mr. Fuji, you have shampoo?" Yeah, brother. Fuji have shampoo. "Yeah, brother, yeah, have Fuji shampoo." So the guy's in the shower, dumping urine all over him. Taking a shower with urine all over him. Fuji laugh about it. There was a guy that called Ron.
The guy didn't know it?
Didn't even know that the boys would not tell. That's the
I can't believe you wouldn't smell it.
That is the thing about wrestling. When a rib was pulled,
Oh, of course.
nobody told you who did the rib, especially Fuji, because you tell that Fuji did this to Ron Shaw, then the next time it's going to be done to you.
Yeah.
Now, Ron Shaw was getting ready to leave the territory, so Fuji went and got a big chain about this big around, about 6 or 8 feet long, big old toe chain, and bought a combination lock. So he took Ron Shaw his pants, put the chain through the legs of his pants, the legs of his shirt, the legs of the coat, and put all of his clothes on this chain.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Then he'd take his wrestling bag, put it on a chain. Then they had these metal pipes in these old buildings, the water pipes and stuff that ran through the top of the building. Then he chained all of it up on the water pipe with a combination lock. They had to go get a guy to unloosen the pipe, slide that off, and he was carrying his stuff out of the dress room with a chain and all his clothes left in his wrestling gear. He had to catch a flight. He got on an airplane with just his wrestling boots and his wrestling tights, carrying this chain, because he had to go, now you got to go get somebody to bust that lock to get the chain off. Salvador Baloma. Back in the old days, Salvador used to wear a coat, like all the coats now got a zipper. But back in the 70s, most of the men's coats that was buttoned up. So he would get combination lock. Every night he put a combination lock on his jacket. This guy had like 6 combination locks on that Fuji would do. Another thing Fuji would do, and guys would tell me, I remember Johnny Weaver would tell me years ago, never take an open beer. Do not take an open beer. What Fuji would do, he would get a Mickey and drop it in your beer. Hey, brother, I had beer. You drink the beer, all of a sudden the freaking room started going around on you. Fuji said that.
More cookie, huh?
Worse than the cooking.
Oh.
The worst in the cooking. So Fuji was always known for doing ribs. Ronnie Garvin was bad for rib too. I remember one time when I first started, they wanted me to meet Ronnie Garvin, and he was sitting on the toilet. So Ronnie said, "I'll be right out. I want to meet the new kid." So normally people don't look down when they go to shake hands. Mike back those days, the old thing was, when you meet a man, you look a man straight in the eyes. You look man to man, you look me straight in the eye. So somebody just told me to look down. So Ronnie came out and said, "Hey, kid," and stuck his hand out to shake my hand. Somebody just said, "Look down to him." I looked, they had a turd in his hand. He played that trick on guys for years. They would grab his hand. Oh, he put a turd in his freaking hand.
But it would be in his
Yeah,
hand.
he put a turd in his hand and go to shake hands with you. That was Ronnie Garvin. Another thing Ronnie Garvin used to do, you driving down the highway in your car. All of a sudden you feel something bump you from behind. It's Ronnie Garvin. And he started pushing you down the freaking highway at 80 to 90 miles per hour. And you're like this. Trying not to go off the freaking road or trying not to hit something. And Ronnie just sitting there just laughing. He just pushed you down the freaking alley. Worst of all, he went and got an airplane. And I'm riding with an airplane. Ronnie decided to show me what he could do with an airplane. Here, up and down and around and flipping it upside down and everything. We got off the airplane, everybody vomited. Me, what's his name? Von Raskin was on that plane with me. I remember Jimmy Slooker was on the plane. I think Paul Jones was on the plane. Somebody else, like 4 of us. Man, when we got off the plane, I got ready to drink a beer. I took one sip of my beer. As soon as Ronnie took off, the plane landed, I'm still holding that beer. I'm like this. I'm scared to freaking death. I know I've been on an airplane before, and Ronnie Garvin is doing all these flips and flops, but the guys look at that as being unreal. That was funny. See, wrestlers didn't go to movies. We didn't go to ball games. We wasn't with our family. We didn't go to cookout. We was our own entertainment. So these guys they were fucking nuts. They was off the freaking deep end, brother. Some of the stuff these guys did, man, it was off the freaking deep end. We was crazy. We was crazy as shit because we was on the road. We were worse than a truck driver. We was on the road 355 days a year, every day. So we didn't get to go to see movies. When I got out the wrestling business, the first thing I told my wife, I want a TV. She said, "Why you want a TV? Why is it so important?" I said, "I never got to watch. For 20 or 30 years, I never watched television. We didn't have time. You get up in the morning, you eat your breakfast, you go to the gym, you get in your car, you drive to the next town. You repeat that every day, day in, day out, day out. Same thing now. Vince made it a lot easier on the guys now because they get they only work 4 days a week. You get 1 day off really because if you work for, let me see how I remember if you work for Monday Night Raw, they did it on Monday, so you have to fly out Monday and then you flew back home on Wednesday. And if you did SmackDown or ECW at that time, they did that taping on Tuesday. So the guy would fly out on Monday, and then we would fly back Thursday. So really, one of the days was a traveling day, so you really couldn't count it as a day off. But then you right back on the road. But when you did a European trip, which happened after every um, uh, WrestleMania, then you're in Germany one day, you're in Austria the next day, you're in France the next day, you in this, so you would go all over the place. It was even the same way, like when y'all hear about the murder of Bruiser Brody, where when Bruiser was going to leave Puerto Rico, he was going to go to Japan. So Brody would wrestle in Texas one day, the next day in Puerto Rico, the next day he's in Japan. After his finger tour in Japan, he fly to New York, and then from New York he fly to Arizona. From Arizona he fly to Connecticut. That's how wrestling worked. Every day you went somewhere. One day you could wrestle in Madison Square Garden, and the next day you're in California, or you're in Hawaii, or you're in Canada. That was a life of a wrestler. You was never in the same place a long, long time. And it's still going now. One day I'm going to show you, I kept one of my WWE schedule, and they show you where my European tour of all the different countries that I was in like 2 weeks. Like in 2 weeks, I went to just about every town, from Ireland to England to Germany, all in 2 weeks. We wrestle a lot in the Middle East, Africa, Central America, Mexico. I mean, wrestling was, like I say, a paid trip around the world. And promoters did not like having time off. The reason was they was afraid that a wrestler, if he had time off, he could develop something for himself. So as long as they kept you going, it gave you no time to develop anything outside of the wrestling business. And there were some things which I don't know if I can talk about in on these broadcasts.
We'll find out.
With the women. I mean, every night there was a different woman in just about every wrestler room. Now, this is during the 70s and 80s. Now, what happened in the 90s? It all changed because McMahon became corporate and he set a certain standard of way wrestling used to be. In the older days, guys would have ribbon, laughing and joking. The dress room was the best part of the business because that's where we tell our stories, that where we did our ribs, that we did everything. Now you go into WWE, you can hear a rat piss on cotton. Everybody's sitting around on their cell phone or even on their little computer. In the older days, guys run around trying to rib each other, trying to do something. Like, I came in the dressing room one day, like I said, I hope I can tell this story without getting in trouble.
I think this would be good, Tony. We got about 9 minutes left. Let's do some rib stories. Finish
Okay, now this is not a rib.
All right.
It was the Iron Sheik. He was sitting on a toilet. And the Sheik is going, excellent. Oh, excellent. Oh, excellent, 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 excellent. So listen, I've never seen somebody so damn happy taking a shitting all day in my life. So one of the wrestlers decided to open up the store door to see what is making the Sheik so damn happy. Talking about, excellent, excellent. He's getting a blowjob. He's sitting there getting a pipe job at the same time taking a crap.
Oh, Jesus.
I couldn't believe it. You would walk in on stuff like this. But I wrote in my book, If the Wall Could Talk, there was not unusual to go to a room where there be naked girls stretched out on a table there. I mean, stretched out on the bed.
Don't get too descriptive. We can find out what we can do. All right.
And all the wrestlers are sitting around with a beer in one hand, drinking beer, eating a sandwich, waiting their turn. It was common. I was a young kid. I'm sitting here looking at this. I said, my God, I never saw nothing like this all the days of my life. So the party started when it got back to the hotel. That's where the party started. The girls would come over. You know, the guys who had the party, they had all the cold cuts, the beer. They would take the big bathtub and ice it down with beer. There was no drugs in the business. So mainly was just whiskey, beer, and food. That was and women. There was food, whiskey, beer, and food. That was a wrestler enjoyment. That's all we got in the day. We didn't go to movies. We didn't go here. We didn't do that. So we all got back to the room, and some guy we had a party. Hey man, the party's in what room? So and so room. The party was in this room. So we all would clam into this one room. Sometimes there'd be 10 wrestlers and 2 women. You know, and so that's the guys would have their fun. The girls did who they wanted to. I mean, with nobody forced themselves on nobody. But some of the girls, I used to sit and watch. They would go to this room, do this wrestler, go to that room, do this wrestler, go to that room, do this wrestler, blah 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 blah. By the time the day was over, they don't made their rounds, But that was a different time. That was during the time of the 70s where everything was not so scrutinized back in them days. If a lady did that, if a wrestler or anybody did that today, you're sexual harassment, there's this and that. But it was a different lifestyle. It was very, very wild lifestyle, and people kind of liked it that way. You had these wild parties that they used to have. Guys would have hangovers where we drag them out the bar. At 4:00 in the morning, drag them out the bar. Throw them in the shower to try to get them ready to go to the next show. Fist fights broke out constantly. If I got in just half the fist fights today that I got in back in them days, I'd be in jail 5 times over. But it was very common to get in, especially in Texas. When you're in a bar in Texas back in the 70s and you hear this, yee-haw, leave or fight. He's ready. Because he probably banned this girl drinks all night long, and then the girl end up leaving with somebody else. So he figured if he can't get laid, he's just going to get in a fight to make the night. So at the end of the day in Texas, back in them days, you end the night either with a fight or with a woman. Which on one came first or which on one you end up with that night. Sometimes you had both. You got in a fight, then go back to the hotel room and get laid. But some of the ribs that guy did was, when I look back on it, I hear a lot of guys used to say that. Me and Nikolai, all the guys said, man, we lucky to be here with some of the crazy, crazy, crazy stuff that we did, Tommy Wildfire Rich, I love him to death, broke my neck. But not in person, but accidentally. Tommy had a habit that he'd be driving, and you say, hey, Tommy would do this. What do you want, T? Just like, Tommy, turn around, Tommy. But he would do that. You asking me, I'm talking about, he would turn complete. The car's going down a freaking highway. You say, hey, Tommy, what do you want, T? And turn around in his seat just like that. And you would like, holy shit. So you don't want to talk to him, especially if you're in the back seat. One day, it's me, Tommy Rich, Johnny Rich, and Nick Patrick. I think Nick Patrick is Gorilla Monsoon's son, if I'm not mistaken.
Jody Hamilton.
Jody Hamilton's son. Yeah, think of that. Jody. I knew his father was in the business, so I couldn't make out which one. Jody Hamilton's son. So I'm sitting in the back with Johnny Rich. Nick Patrick is sitting up front with Tommy. And Nick, I was asleep, halfway asleep. I'm trying to nod out. Nick Patrick, the guy that's sitting beside me, which one it was, either Nick Patrick or Johnny Rich, Tommy Rich brother, said something to Tommy. Tommy turned around in the seat like this to see what the guy said. Then I hear this what woke me up. So I said, watch out, Tommy. So Tommy turned back around. The car was in its first flip. It flipped 3 times. 3 times it flipped. So Ole Anderson there was following me. I don't remember this part. This was told to me later. The Iron Sheik ran down and ripped the door open to get me out because I was stuck in the car. Ole Anderson said, Sheik, if you go down to help me, I'm going to fire you. So anyway, they put me in the hospital. Now, Ole Anderson, after I was in the hospital a week, he sent some guy to slip me out the hospital. Took me to the TV station. Had me to sit there. I had this big halo on because I had a broken neck. And I had to put my arm on the turnbuckle and do this. They had Buzz Sawyer that she's supposed to gimmick the board. You like saw it halfway in two. He's supposed to come and break a 2x4 over my head. But they want the board to break. But Bud Sawyer, he was stoned as hell at that time. So I got a broken that. Bud Sawyer hit me right in the two boy by sword. Now I'm knocked out on my freaking feet. I'm out like a freaking light. So it didn't break. What do you think Bud Sawyer did? Hit me in the head again. Because what Ole wanted to do, he didn't want people to know that I was in the hospital from a broken neck. He want people to think Bud Sawyer did it, so when I get out the hospital, me and Bud Sawyer could work the anger together. Well, one of the referees, I think the name was Charlie Smith, came up in the newspaper and said, Ole, that's not going to work. Ole said, why? He said, it's already in the newspaper what happened to Tony Abbott. It's in the newspaper. And Ole said, oh, you mean I went through all this for nothing? Then Charlie Smith said, well, I guess you did. Okay, take him back to the hospital. We don't need him. That was wrestling. You didn't cry. It was about making money. Now, when you look at that, the guy would take a guy with a broken neck, hit him, he was thinking about making money. When I dislocated my knee, I had to wrestle Harley Race for 1 hour in the omelet. They drug me to the thing, hit me in the leg with that chronozone, me and Harley Race wrestled for 1 hour. So if you got injured back in them days, you had to show up. You had no excuse not to be there. There was a lot of guys wrestling with their back was out, bad elbow, So we get more into it. I know I'm rambling. I'm all over the place. As time go on, I'm going to try to get this more organized so y'all can kind of understand what I'm saying. But there's just so much that I have seen in the real wrestling business. Because I wrestled when wrestling was for real.